If you're like me, then you've got a lot of scrap and spare wood around that you're not sure what to do with. So in my case, I decided to make a paddle. During the summer, my wife and I and our friends, we like to go floating down the river near our house, and I decided a new paddle, one that I made from scrap wood, would be a lot of fun to use this summer. So I took a bunch of spare wood that I've got around, some 2x2 cedar, some beautiful koa wood that my dad from Hawaii sent me in little chunks like this. And in this case, I've also got some of my grandfather's cherry wood from his cherry wood tree that I'm going to use for the outside bits of the paddle itself, and I think that's going to look really pretty. The first step is really simple. You're going to take all the bits and glue it together. You're going to have small bits for the handle up top. You're going to need one long, preferably like a 2x2. In my case, I went to a discount wood store, found a piece of redwood 2x2 that was only 75 cents a foot. So this was less than, I don't know, $3 or $4 to buy this long piece. Then glue all your boards together into a shape that roughly looks like a paddle. Now I've got a planer that a friend sold me after his dad moved into a new house and they cleaned out their garage. If you don't have a planer, you could use something else like a belt sander or maybe even a hand plane to try and plane this down to size. Now when you're planing, you want to make sure you don't go down any further than the thickness that you need, the spine, I think it's called the spine, I don't know what else you call that, the handle of your paddle. You want to make sure that thickness is the deepest you go. We're going to sand the rest of this down to our final paddle width after we cut out the rough shape that we want for our paddle. I'm using a bandsaw here, but a skill saw would work just as well. Once you've got the rough shape cut out, you want to use some really coarse sandpaper to really refine the shape of the paddle that you want, the shape of the handle that you want, and really get down to the shape that you want for the paddle. Now I'm using a pencil here to really draw out the final shape that I want for my handle. I did the same thing for the blade of the paddle, just so I can get a good idea of how deep I want to get that sanding to really shape the paddle and handle itself.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
You'll see here that I use 220 grit to actually create a beveled edge around the outside of the blade. And this project is going to require that you sand and keep sanding and sand some more. There's a lot of sanding in this project.
Sound right, boy.
All right, this is the moment of truth where we actually get to see our scrap wood paddle's inner beauty by applying our lacquer, or if you want to use some other kind of coating on the outside, treatment on the outside to make it waterproof. You do whatever you want to do. I'm just using a clear satin lacquer here, and we're going to see just what our beautiful boards look like once we're all finished here. Oh, look at the rich color of that different wood. That is just going to be beautiful when that all sets in and dries up. And here's just a first glimpse of what our beautiful paddle is going to look like when it's all done. So that's it. By the end of this, you'll have a beautiful new paddle made out of scrap wood or just wood that's been laying around your shop for a long time that you had nothing else to do with it. And you know, I was putting together my video here and just kind of thinking about what I learned while I was building this scrap wood paddle. And I don't think there's anything unique about this paddle. People have been making paddles for thousands of years, right? But what I did kind of recognize is that the planning stages of putting this paddle together are probably where I learned the most, which is I wanted to take something that was trash, something that was would otherwise be thrown away, scrap wood in a shed that, you know, people would normally toss out when they're done with whatever project they're working on. Or maybe you've got a bin of scrap wood sitting in your shop somewhere, you have no idea what to do with that wood. And the idea here was that instead of throwing out these miscellaneous pieces of wood, we could find a use for them, because sometimes in the moment you may not think of how something could be useful because it's not applicable to whatever project you're working on or your situation. But then later on, a scenario presents itself where that piece of wood or thing, whatever it might have been thrown out, but it could be really useful later. So I think that's kind of where I learned the most in this project, and I hope you did too. Anyway, if you liked the video, subscribe, like it, do the, I don't know, there's a notification bell, there's things, you know what to do. We'll see you next time.